Hi, I'm Mike Glenn, and I am the president of the Engaged Church Network. And joining me today is Matt Largen. Matt is the president, executive director,
CEO, yeah,
CEO of Williamson Inc., which is the Chamber of Commerce for Williamson County. Matt grew up in Arkansas and loves to ski, play tennis, make furniture. I find it really suspicious that you list all your hobbies on your resume before you list any serious work that you do. Mm-hmm. Graduate of the University of New Hampshire and has been in Williamson County now for,
I think 15 years.
I was figuring to say, it's been a minute I've had the privilege of working with Matt on a lot of different projects. He's a great source of information for what is happening in Williamson County. So I thought it might help us as pastors and leaders of local churches to kind of talk with Matt about what is going on in Williamson County and how fast the changes are happening and what those changes mean for the future of Williamson County, other than traffic.
Yes, that is a byproduct of success, Mike.
Well, that's the way you see it.
That's the way we see it, yeah.
When I was stuck on 65 this morning coming
Didn't feel successful, did it? Didn't feel very successful.
Success is not the word that came to mind.
Yeah.
But I like how you have reframed that.
There we go. That's how you
So 15 years ago, what was that, 2009, 2010? Mm-hmm. Right out of the recession and the economic downturn. You start. Even then, Franklin, Brickwood, Williamson County is very different than it is now.
Right.
So what kind of changes have you seen?
I think the biggest change has been in the quality of companies we're attracting to Williamson County. So when Nissan decided to move their North and South American headquarters here, at this point, 15, 16, 17 years ago,
right.
It was a
huge
beacon.
News.
Huge news. NBC Night News, front page of the Wall Street Journal. It was a beacon to other companies that they could move here and be successful here because they could access our talent. They had a talent pipeline from local universities, and they could relocate talent from across the globe. And that really changed everything. It was up until 1989, manufacturing was our number one employment sector, and now it's professional and business services management. In fact, Williamson County accounts for 22% of all the management jobs across the state of Tennessee, and yet we account for only 3.7% of the state's population. Wow. That's been the biggest change.
Yeah. So these kind of people who are moving in from all over, different education level,
right.
Different income level, different expectations for services and how the city is to work, how the county is to work. What kind of differences have you seen?
Yeah, no, I think there's a really high expectation, especially when it comes to our school system. I mean, people are very demanding of teachers, of administrators. I mean, they want to give their kids their best life, which I understand. So I think there's definitely an expectation. And I will say, too, sometimes it's a bit of a misnomer that when a company moves here, all their people move with them. Companies that move these days come here to hire us.
Right.
They want to hire the local talent. So Mitsubishi is a great example. They moved their manufacturing headquarters here, automotive manufacturing headquarters here, and they have hired now 85% of their talent currently from local sources. So they came here with a few key executives, and then they stayed here and hired us. And that's really important to make sure our kids and grandkids have career ladders in our community without having to leave Williamson County and go to Charlotte, Atlanta, Chicago, and other cities like that.
Which used to be. When I moved here in 2001, Nashville was a middle management town.
Right.
You would come, you would stay in Nashville 3 or 4 years, and then you'd be transferred to Atlanta, Charlotte, Chicago. And it was a different kind of church when you were pastoring a church that turned over every 4 or 5 years.
That is a great point. I hadn't even thought about it from that standpoint, but you're exactly right. We talk about this being a place where you could start as an intern at Mitsubishi. You could move into work in accounting at Nissan.
Right.
You could move then as a vice president of Mars Pet Care, and then you retire as CFO at Tractor Supply Company without ever leaving the county. And that's a new thing for us. That's a new paradigm. And I think it's what really is the base of this very successful economy.
Okay. Now, the average person in Williamson County is how old?
Yeah.
Income stream?
Our average age, I think, is 38, 39 years old. That continues to creep up as our housing costs have gone up.
Right.
Our average household income is, I think, around 150. It's one of the highest in the nation. And then the average home price is over $1 million, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a real issue. And we've seen an exorbitant increase over the last 4 years of over 60%. We're one of 4 counties in America where that's happened. And that's a challenge, is how do you manage this attainable or affordable housing for the next generation,
right?
For your kids and grandkids to come back in and be successful.
From Jacksonville,
okay,
Florida.
Yeah,
got a really good job. Proud of him. Moved back, finding a home. And Jeannie was saying, "Well, I don't want him to live in Hendersonville or wherever." And I said, "Well, he's been living in Jacksonville." So, but they were able to relocate in Williamson County. But it was a lot of nights praying, trying to find something to open up.
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So with all of these opportunities come certain challenges. What are those challenges?
The challenges is I think around maintaining the character of our community, making sure we continue to be a place people want to go to, with the uniqueness and charm of downtown Franklin. And I think you can do that through policy. I think the other is traffic. There's no question. We're one of the biggest cities in America without a regional transit system. That's a challenge. And I think housing. Housing is the single biggest challenge right now. And no one has quite figured out how to do it, because you're really working against capitalism when you're looking to convince someone who's a home builder to take less money for their lot or for their house, right? And so we've got to figure out how we manage these kind of challenges. But I will say, I'd rather have these sets of challenges with abundance than challenges with scarcity.
Right. Yeah. That's when pastors come to me and go, "We don't have parking, and we've run out of." Thank God, that's the problem you've got.
It's the best if you don't. Yeah. If you don't have a parking problem in a community, you have a much worse set of problems.
Yeah. Now, a lot of there are a lot of churches in Williamson County.
Right.
Most of these churches are older rural congregations. They used to be, when I moved here in 2001, you would still hear people say they didn't want to drive all the way into Nashville.
Okay.
Because that was a long way away. Franklin was not a suburb yet. It was still its own little county seat town. And Nashville was way away. Now it's all kind of grown together. But a lot of these churches, everything has changed around them. And so helping these congregations and pastors respond to the new ministry opportunities that are now there around them is now our challenge. So what would you say? Let's just say we're having coffee with a bunch of pastors of local churches. What would you say to them about how Williamson County is changing?
I would say you're seeing more wealth move in the community. You're seeing people move from different parts of the country. We know that Los Angeles and Chicago are the 2 biggest metros that have moved here since COVID. We had it before. Now the velocity has increased significantly. I think you have people that have different, we started by saying different level of expectations, probably higher expectations. And people with probably much shorter attention spans. But that's across the country, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tell pastors, if you do not create a point of concern in 90 seconds, they're not going to listen to you. They'll pull out their phone and they'll check out. And they won't hear another word.
And I think too, this is interesting you said that. I think the point of concern piece, right, is what's the expectation when you move here? What are the cultural norms of taking care of each other? We know with data, we're a very philanthropic community. So how does that translate into making sure that when you move here, you understand this is a place where you come to take care of each other, just like people who have moved here over the years have done. We've created this expectation that we care for those around us. And people want to be involved in something with a higher purpose, with a higher mission.
Right. So this higher purpose, higher mission is certainly a key opening for churches and for the gospel.
Sure.
So you and I have been friends a long time. We've talked about churches and that kind of stuff. What do you look for when you show up, when you go to church?
Depth. I think depth. I tend to be more analytical, I think.
Right. But you're not unlike a lot of people who live in Williamson County.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true. And I don't know if there's a correlation with education level or not. I have no idea. But, a lot of, I want a level of understanding. I think that is not possible. I mean, that's just how I think I've learned over time that I'm built.
You're one of those church members.
I'm one of those people. Yep. That I want to know the why, and then I want to know the why behind that, and the why behind that, and the why behind that, and where's the original text, and what's that's me, right? When I went with my church to Israel, I was mildly obsessed with, okay, why isn't there archaeological evidence of the Exodus? I want to know. I want to understand that.
Right.
That kind of stuff. Right. And I certainly believe in miracles. They're possible. They happen. But I'd love to see the evidence.
Right.
And that can be really hard in my own head.
Exactly.
All the time.
And hard that you've got 20, 25
minutes. And for the people around me, too.
In a sermon. Right.
Right, exactly.
To answer
right,
that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. And understanding, I think, too, and this is the balance, is if you have new people to the community and new people in the faith, that sermon's going to look very different than if you try to appeal like someone like me. And if you try to appeal to just like me, you're not going to have a congregation for very long.
No, I think this is one of the things that we are discovering. Now, it used to be when I first started a long time ago, and we had new inventions like the light bulb and some other stuff, some other stuff like that. You preached on Sunday morning, okay, and that was the one shot you had. So everything was about Sunday morning. Right. Now, with social media and everything else, you have Sunday morning that is almost the first paragraph or the opening statement of a communication pattern that you will need to have, everything from podcasts to blogs to everything else. You remember I said Sunday. Now let's look at this word a little differently. So you go much deeper with your congregation, or at least there is the opportunity to do that. Now, what we're finding out is most pastors haven't planned for that in their day. So they're still going to the meetings, they're still going to the hospitals and all of that. Now you're having to write a blog on top of that.
Okay.
But this is the way that the new reality is changing.
Okay.
Because you're not alone in expecting or needing that kind of conversation.
Right.
Because what happens is, and you know this because you survived COVID, if people can't find out information, they go to Google. And Professor Google may or may not help them in their particular journey. So
yeah, that's a great point. In Israel, the guide talked a little about milk versus meat. Yeah, right, and being fed versus feeding yourself, and finding. And that analogy is also stuck in my head too.
So
yeah.
So you're a problem church member. Is that what I'm hearing?
There is no question I'm a problem church member. There is no doubt about it. Self-admitted. I totally get it. Yeah, I'm there. That's me. Yeah.
So what are your dreams, thoughts, as someone who lives in Williamson County?
Gosh, it's a pretty broad question, Mike. Dreams and thoughts. I mean, I've got two daughters, an 18 and a 16-year-old, and my dream for them is to have, is to enjoy success in a healthy way,
right?
And not in terms of what the world may define. Certainly not just your bank account, but success in a way that their lives are not always happy, right? Because that's not realistic. There are challenges, which is when you call on and rely on your faith. But a life of meaning and purpose. And what does it look like to be someone who finds purpose in what they do, to really serve and love others and love God? I mean, that's right. I mean, it's right there. That's the two commands, right? Love God, love others. That's a big deal, and I think about that all the time. And I really do think if you just focus on how you treat other people well, the Beatitudes, this isn't that complicated. People like me make it way more complicated.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. And all you're dealing with the corporate world, the political world that you live in, what do you wish churches understood? How do you wish churches would help?
Okay, that's a great question. I think a church that mirrors the challenges in a community and is able to jump in from a faith perspective. For example, if you've got a community like Williamson County who sees far more suicides than we should.
Right.
How does a church plug in to help for that?
Okay.
What resources can they bring to bear? What spiritual conversations can they have to help people understand there's something here greater than just you, and the decisions you make impact generations, right? And so I think, a church that's willing to jump in and sometimes when it gets messy, to make sure what they're doing is reflecting what's happening in the community.
Right.
I remember a church in Williamson County, I'm careful not to say which church, but they scrapped their entire Sunday service after Covenant, and they had a panel of mental health experts to talk about, okay, we've seen a terrible tragedy, what do we do about it now? That's the kind of church that's going to last, that actually gets in some of these messy worldly problems and helps from a spiritual standpoint to solve these things, or at least make progress on them.
Okay, Matt, you talk about local churches being aware and engaged and responsive to local community needs. Where would be the best way for a church to find out about these needs?
It's a great question. There are over 100 nonprofit organizations that are members of our organization to start. There are probably thousands of nonprofit organizations in Williamson County doing work. And I'd say plugging into those leaders, those executives, those boards of directors are great ways for churches to find out what's actually happening on the ground in their communities.
Okay. So what are the handful of those issues that you're aware of?
And I think one of the things that people assume is because our average wage and household income is so high, there's not poverty in this community.
Right.
There certainly is. And I think there are organizations like GraceWorks that do a great job of taking care of our neighbors in need. So I think sometimes it gets glossed over that, the problems are in the big city of Nashville, not in Williamson County. That's not the case.
Right.
There are plenty of organizations working on challenges that face families throughout Williamson County. And I think sometimes that average household income masks some of the problems people assume don't happen in this community, that happen everywhere where there's people.
Yeah. And that issue manifests itself in a lot of ways. Like, one of the ways that our church found out we could help was providing school supplies.
Yeah.
Just letting teachers know if you have a student that doesn't have a backpack or pencils or the fancy coloring markers that you need, let us know. We'll take care of that.
That's great. That's a great example.
Those kind of things.
And it happens when you're plugged in the community. Right. And it happens when you have people in the church that are also plugged in the community, and they know what's happening. And look, we're not supposed to be of the world, but we're in the world.
That's right.
And we have an obligation because we're in the world to help. And I think a lot of ways when you do this, you're pointing people to Christ when you're walking alongside of them when they're going through some really difficult challenges.
Well, we live in a time where I tell people the ministry comes before the message.
Right.
When I started, it was all about the gospel first.
Right.
Now people have become so tainted and cynical about the message that they have to see some kind of good work. Then they'll ask, why are you here and why did you do that? And that gives you the opportunity to share the gospel. I
think that is a great way to explain it. Yeah. I think people are cynical, not just about the church, about every institution.
Oh gosh, yeah.
I think we can read the polls. I read one yesterday, or heard one yesterday. The Supreme Court has a 19% approval rating. Right, 19% trust in the Supreme Court for a host of reasons, I'm sure. But I mean, that is just an example of the fact that people don't have any institutional trust.
Congress hasn't been in double digits, and I don't know how long.
Right. So you've got to so you're fighting that. People assume corruption. You have to prove otherwise.
That's right.
And then I think, just like you said, the ministry comes first, and then the message follows. And I think it's wow, why are you helping me? Well, let me explain why I'm helping you, right?
Jesus,
I mean, I think that's exactly.
This is what Jesus tells us
That's
to do.
exactly. It's exactly. And you have to have a relationship too. And that's so important. I think people have to be in relationships with people not like us, people who don't believe the same things we do. And then that provides an opportunity to explain, why we believe the things we do and how what we believe leads us to the behavior and the actions and the way we, again, just treat other people.
Yeah. He's Matt Largen. He is the chief executive of Williamson Inc., the Chamber of Commerce for Williamson County, and he's one of the reasons that Williamson County is a good place to live. I'm Mike Glenn. This is the Engaged Church Network. Thanks for joining us.